Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast.
Glad to be here for this one.
Yeah, today we are doing a really fascinating deep dive into an article by Felix Römer from smartkeys.org. It's called Data Storytelling, Turning Insights into Compelling Narratives.
Which is such a massive topic right now. I mean, Felix has, like 15 years in e-commerce and digital marketing.
Exactly. He focuses heavily on the future of work. And this piece really treats data storytelling as this critical resource for business efficiency, not just some optional design flair.
Right, because as a modern professional, you have basically endless access to data, right?
Oh, absolutely. Dashboards, real-time analytics, you name it. But I always think of it like this kitchen analogy. Having massive amounts of data without a story is basically like having all the ingredients for a complex Michelin star recipe just dumped right onto your kitchen counter without any instructions.
Oh, I like that.
Right, like you have the flour, the eggs, the imported truffles. The raw potential is sitting right there, but without a clear sequence, without a vision for how those ingredients interact, it is just an overwhelming mess.
Yeah, it's paralyzing. I mean, we spent the last decade building these incredible infrastructures to gather information, right? We can track a user's mouse movement down to the millisecond.
Wow, yeah.
But the human beings who actually have to make the decisions are still operating on the exact same biological hardware we've had for thousands of years.
Right, the brain hasn't upgraded.
Exactly. So we're asking executives to process these walls of disconnected metrics, and then we act surprised when brilliant analysis gets completely ignored. The gap isn't the math anymore. The gap is the translation.
Which means our mission for this deep dive is to figure out how to actually be that translator. So we're going to explore the psychology of why stories stick, unpack a 3-pillar framework for data storytelling, and really show you how to turn those static dashboards into, active decision-making engines.
I mean, to start that translation, we really have to look at the neuroscience.
The actual biology of it.
Yeah, before we even worry about what kind of chart to build, we need to understand exactly why a narrative works better than just a wall of metrics on a biological level.
Okay, lay it on me.
So, if you slide a dense spreadsheet across a conference table, you're essentially asking the viewer to fire up their prefrontal cortex and do heavy computational lifting.
Which is exhausting.
It is. It's so exhausting. But when you wrap that same information in a narrative structure, you activate Wernicke's area.
Wernicke's area.
Yeah, it's the region of the brain responsible for parsing words and logical sequencing. You're giving the brain this familiar pathway to walk down.
Yeah.
It processes the this happened and then this happened structure.
Right, but I mean, I can follow a logical sequence and still not really care about the outcome. Logic doesn't necessarily guarantee action,
Oh, 100%. And that is exactly where the amygdala comes in.
The emotional sense.
Exactly. The amygdala adds emotional weight and significance to the information. So Wernicke's area handles the structure, the amygdala attaches the stakes, and then they both send signals to the hippocampus.
And the hippocampus does memory.
Right. When the hippocampus gets signals from both logic and emotion, recall just dramatically improves. That combination is the biological trigger that moves information into long-term retention.
Okay, but wait, let me play the skeptic here for a second.
Sure.
Isn't business supposed to be purely logical? I mean, why are we bringing emotion into data analytics? I'm not trying to make the CFO cry over a spreadsheet.
I hear that pushback constantly in analytics. We tend to conflate emotion with, melodrama.
Right.
But in the context of business storytelling, according to the source, emotion just means human stakes. It doesn't mean crying. It means reframing abstract metrics into concrete human outcomes so people can actually picture the cause and effect.
So giving the numbers a pulse, basically.
Exactly. Like if you say Q2 churn increased by 4%, that is totally abstract. Wernicke's area might get the math, but the amygdala has nothing to grab onto.
It's just a number.
But if you say we are rapidly losing our most loyal weekend users, meaning our core community is shrinking, you've changed the stakes. A single annotated visualization that creates a mental picture that facts alone just can't.
Okay, that makes total sense. Now that we know our brains need that emotion and structure, how do we actually build it? Because the source outlines this 3-pillar framework.
Yeah, 3 core elements.
Right, and going back to the kitchen analogy, I sort of see this as a 3-legged stool. So the first pillar is data, which is the foundation. And Felix highlights 4 modes of analysis here, right?
Yeah, the 4 modes: descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. And most organizations just get stuck at the very first one, descriptive, which just tells you what happened.
Like sales are down 10%.
Right. totally passive.
So if the data is biased or stuck in that first mode, the stool collapses. Then the second pillar is the narrative. This is the simple scaffold of setup, insight, and recommendation.
Or context conflict resolution.
Exactly. And if that narrative is missing, no one knows where to sit on the stool, but you also have to tailor that narrative.
This is such a critical insight from the text.
Yeah.
You have to aggressively tailor the depth.
Because executives versus analysts need completely different things.
Yes. If you're talking to executives, they just need the headline and the recommendation. Their cognitive bandwidth is maxed out. But if you take that exact same high-level narrative to your peers in analytics, they'll reject it.
Because they want to see the methodology.
Exactly. They want the methodology and the assumptions. You have to calibrate to the room.
And then the third leg of the stool is visualizations. The charts and visuals that serve a specific purpose. And if the visual is confusing, sitting on the stool is just uncomfortable.
Yeah, we've all been in that meeting where a slide goes up and it's just...
A complete mess of pie charts and tiny text.
Yeah, chart junk. It's where most professional presentations completely derail.
So let's zoom in on that third pillar, because the text has some really specific rules for visual design. The first one being, remove the noise.
Right. Excessive grid lines, 3D shapes, drop shadows, redundant legends. We usually leave them in because the software just puts them there by default.
Yeah, Excel just thinks it looks pretty.
But every drop of ink requires the viewer's brain to process it. You're taxing their working memory. You also have to match the chart to the message.
Right, so line charts for trends over time, because the eye follows a continuous path.
Exactly. Bar charts for comparisons. Stacked bars for parts to whole. And, crucially, use color sparingly.
Oh, this is huge. You don't need 6 different colors for 6 regions.
Now make 5 of them a muted gray and use a strong contrasting color like bold blue or red to highlight the exact point of change.
And always annotate that point, like write a brief caption right on the chart explaining why it happens so the viewer doesn't have to hunt for it.
If they're hunting, they aren't listening to you.
Exactly. But how do you know if you've actually succeeded in making a clear visual? Or if you're just, biased because you spent 3 days making it?
That's where the golden rule from the source comes in, the 5-second test.
The 5-second test! I love this!
It's brilliant. If someone who has no context on your project cannot restate the core takeaway in 5 seconds, the cognitive load is too high.
Wow, 5 seconds is nothing.
It's really fast. But if they can't do it, you must simplify the chart until they can.
Okay, so a beautiful, brain-friendly chart is great. We passed the 5-second test. But how does this actually translate to business efficiency? Like, how does this keep you or your company ahead in the real world?
Well, the transition from a dashboard to an actual decision requires embedding that narrative into the workflow. Let's look at the customer churn example from the text.
Right. Usually a churn dashboard is just a terrifying downward line, which causes panic, but no real action.
Exactly. But if you use cohort segmentation, like separating weekend users from weekday users, you might reveal specific drop-off points.
Like realizing you're only losing weekend users after a recent update.
Right. And now, marketing and product teams can act in sync to target that specific cohort instead of overhauling the whole platform.
That makes total sense. And there was another example, too, Canadian Tire.
Yes, the Canadian Tire inventory example. In retail, stockouts mean immediate lost revenue. The old way is just a red warning light saying, we're out of stock.
But by then, the customer is already walking out the door.
Exactly. So they shifted to contextual dashboards that tell the upstream story. They link things like forecast error and lead times to root causes like a weather freeze, combined with an overseas supplier delay.
So they see the collision course before it happens.
Right. And it allows them to expedite freight from a domestic supplier and prevent the stockout entirely.
Wow. So you're shifting from just observing the disaster to actually preventing it.
But you have to operationalize these insights. You don't just present a slide. The key to staying ahead is engineering the transition from insight to a plan.
Right, getting the business leaders and domain experts in these short working sessions.
Exactly. And the golden rule here is assign one owner per action. Not a department, one named individual.
Because if it's a department, everyone assumes someone else is doing it.
Exactly. Attach an operating metric to track it and set a firm review date.
Okay, so if this is so effective, why do so many meetings still end in total confusion? We really need to look at what goes wrong and, how we measure our improvement.
Well, the biggest pitfall is overload. It's that kitchen countertop we talked about.
Oh, yeah. Multiple charts, unlabeled axes, clashing colors. It just buries the main point. So the fix is limiting each page to a single core message.
One idea per page.
And there's this simple trick the text highlights that I think is brilliant, adding a one-line framing sentence to every chart.
Instead of a generic title.
Right. Like instead of Q3 revenue, you write Q3 revenue dropped because weekend user retention fell by 10%. It explains exactly why the metric matters to the business before they even look at the bars.
It hands Wernicke's area the logical conclusion instantly. But, you also have to measure if your storytelling is actually working.
How do you even measure that? It feels subjective.
You track leading indicators. First, stakeholder recall. Do they actually remember the takeaway a week later? Second, time to action. How fast did they move? And third, adherence to next steps. Did that named owner follow through?
And if they didn't, the source advises doing a review of failures without blame.
Yes. You have to determine what broke. Was it the underlying data? Was the narrative out of sequence? Or did the visualization just overwhelm everyone? You figure it out and you iterate.
I love that. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a forward-looking thought. As tools like AI and augmented analytics become more prevalent in the future of work, generating this data is going to become entirely automated.
Oh, absolutely. The machines will pull the queries and spot the anomalies instantly.
Right. So the uniquely human, irreplaceable skill will be the ability to translate those complex findings into simple, compelling narratives that align teams and drive fast decisions.
The AI can't attach the emotional stakes that humans need to act. So my direct challenge to you, based on the text, is to try one idea this week.
Just one.
Yeah. Present a single annotated chart with a clear recommendation and a named owner. Track the result and repeat. Build that muscle.
It's such a practical takeaway. Well, thank you for tuning into the SmartKeys podcast. We really hope this deep dive helps you stop dumping ingredients and start serving a real narrative. Please make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss our future deep dives.
And definitely go read Felix Römer's full article.
Yes, the link is right there in the show notes. Check it out. We will catch you next time.